Forget the headlines predicting, California's absolute doom because billionaires are packing up.
Right.
Today, we're making this really surprising case that this mass migration might actually be, well, the reboot the Golden State desperately needs.
Yeah, and we're going to look at why the long-term benefits could honestly far outweigh the short-term tax loss.
Exactly. Intriguing, right? Well, stay tuned, because the reasons aren't what you might think.
It is a phenomenal counter-narrative. I mean, the goal for this deep dive is to challenge some very ingrained assumptions you might have about wealth migration.
For sure.
We're going to unpack the complex, hidden mechanics of what actually happens to an ecosystem when its apex financial predators suddenly just pack up and leave.
And we have a massive stack of sources to guide us through this today. Rather than just, taking the news at face value, we're blending a bunch of stuff.
Oh, yeah, lots of data.
We've got deep fiscal analyses from the Hoover Institution, a really comprehensive Future of Fiscal Reform report from California 100, and migration data from the State Controller's Office.
Plus that fascinating race business study on Silicon Valley syndrome.
Right, and a New Times Magazine investigation into the quiet exit of the ultra-rich. Oh, and even a really fiery Reddit Change My View debate on the real-world mechanics of taxing the wealthy.
But before we dive into the deep end, a quick but critical note for you listening. We are touching on some highly politically charged tax debates today.
Definitely.
And we're going to feature strong opinions from across the political spectrum. So we want to be completely clear here. We are strictly impartial.
100%. We aren't endorsing any political viewpoint or policy.
No, not at all. Our mission is simply to explore the fascinating economic and social ideas presented in these sources and, just analyze the mechanics from all sides.
So let's unpack the good case first. To understand why losing a billionaire could actually benefit California's ecosystem, we have to examine the hidden damage that extreme wealth concentration has inflicted on the state over the last couple of decades.
Yeah, and the Rice Business Study gives us a fantastic lens to view this through. They coined this term Silicon Valley syndrome.
I like that term.
Right. And they found that a massive influx of venture capital into a concentrated region acts almost exactly like a classic economic phenomenon known as the Dutch disease.
Okay, so for anyone who hasn't sat through a macroeconomics lecture recently, the Dutch disease usually applies to entire countries.
Right, like on a national scale.
Yeah. So imagine a small nation suddenly discovers a massive reserve of oil. Foreign money just absolutely floods in to buy that oil.
Which sounds great at first.
It sounds incredible. It's great for the oil companies and the national GDP on paper. But that flood of cash inflates local costs and drives up the value of the currency so drastically that it completely kills off the country's other traditional exports and manufacturing industries.
Exactly.
The local furniture maker or, a textile factory, they simply can't afford to operate in that hyperinflated environment.
And the Rice study maps that exact dynamic onto a regional level with tech and venture capital.
Wow.
Yeah. When billions of dollars of VC money flood into a concentrated geographic sector, it dramatically drives up the costs of commercial real estate and wages.
Right.
And so what happens? It contracts the rest of the tradable sector. A traditional manufacturing company or like a mid-level logistics firm simply cannot afford to pay Silicon Valley rents.
Or compete with software engineer salaries just for basic administrative staff.
Precisely. They either relocate or they go bankrupt.
So it essentially suffocates diverse entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
I mean, if you aren't building a high-margin software company with venture backing, the barrier to entry is just insurmountable.
Yeah, you can't just open up a specialized machine shop or a regional food distribution business in an environment where, a starter warehouse costs millions of dollars.
The study goes even deeper into what happens in the non-tradable sector too, right?
Oh, yeah. The local service economy that you interact with every day, things you can't export like haircuts, bartending, medical care.
Stuff everyone needs.
Right. This hyper-concentration of wealth creates massive inequality within the community. As tech wealth explodes, the people at the top of the local service chain see their incomes skyrocket.
Like the specialized concierge doctors, luxury real estate agents, corporate lawyers.
Exactly, because their clients are suddenly flush with cash.
Meanwhile, the wages for the people at the base of that service economy, retail workers, line cooks, delivery drivers, they just stagnate.
Or grow at a snail's pace.
Right. Their paychecks aren't scaling with the stock options of the tech founders, but their rent certainly is. So you end up completely hollowing out the middle class.
You have extreme wealth at the top, a struggling service class at the bottom, and basically nothing in between.
Which brings a completely different perspective to a debate we found bubbling up on Reddit. One user posed a really fascinating hypothetical.
I remember this one.
Yeah, they asked, what if California doesn't actually need a single mega corporation or a resident billionaire to thrive?
It's such a bold question.
I love this argument. It challenges the entire premise of economic development. They argue that replacing one giant tax-avoiding conglomerate with, like, 150,000 thriving local small businesses creates a fundamentally more resilient tax base.
Oh, because of the risk distribution.
Exactly. Think about the risk. If a tech giant has a bad quarter and lays off 10,000 people, the entire local economy shudders.
Yeah, coffee shops close, restaurants go under.
Right. But if you have 150,000 diverse small businesses, from accounting firms to bakeries to specialized manufacturing, the failure of one or two doesn't collapse the municipal budget.
It fosters a way healthier ecosystem with a realistic barrier to entry.
And that vision of a diversified economy ties directly into, well, the #1 issue driving residents out of California right now.
Which is housing. The state controller's office migration report is incredibly explicit about this.
Yeah, the astronomical cost of housing is the single biggest driver of outmigration.
Their polling showed 33% of adults have seriously considered leaving the state simply because they can no longer afford to put a roof over their heads.
A third of the state.
It's wild. But here is where the counterintuitive win comes into play. If high taxes and a challenging regulatory environment push the ultra-rich out of the state, the SCO report notes this could eventually cool demand at the absolute highest end of the real estate market.
It creates a domino effect.
Yeah. If billionaires and mega millionaires aren't constantly engaged in bidding wars for property, dropping cash over asking price, that top-tier housing market cools.
And that lack of extreme upward pressure eventually trickles down, right?
Exactly. Housing prices stabilize. The overall cost of living stops its exponential climb.
And that stabilization might finally allow the essential middle-class workforce, the teachers, the nurses, the firefighters, the people running those 150,000 small businesses, to actually afford to stay in their communities.
It literally reverses the gentrification cycle that the Silicon Valley syndrome accelerated.
Okay, I hear that, and the idea of a balanced ecosystem with affordable rent and thriving local shops sounds wonderful. Really, it does. But there's a glaring hole in this utopian vision. Mom-and-pop grocery stores and local accountants don't generate the massive capital gains taxes needed to fund state highways.
No, they definitely do not.
If the apex predators, the handful of billionaires bankrolling the state's massive budget, if they pack up their family offices and leave, who is paying for the public university system?
Or the social safety nets.
Exactly. Who pays for it?
That is the multi-billion-dollar reality check. I mean, we have to look at the stark, undeniable short-term devastation California is facing, because the transition period won't be a gentle glide.
Not at all.
The budget numbers modeled by the Hoover Institution paint a really brutal picture.
Let's break down the math on the proposed 5% wealth tax that sparked so much of this panic. The proponents of the tax sold it to the public by claiming it would raise roughly $100 billion for the state coffers.
Right. Sounds like a massive win.
But Hoover crunched the behavioral economics and calculated that it wouldn't raise a dime. It would actually leave the state worse off by a net loss of $25 billion.
Right, a loss.
A $25 billion loss.
Well, the behavioral response is everything here. A wealth tax assumes the wealthy will simply sit there and pay it, but capital is mobile.
So mobile.
By aggressively targeting billionaires, California doesn't just fail to collect the new wealth tax, they drive the individual out of the state entirely.
And when that billionaire leaves, they take their standard, reliable, future state income tax contributions with them for the next 20 or 30 years.
And the departure isn't hypothetical anymore. It is actively happening.
Yeah, the Hoover analysis noted that between the filing of the wealth tax initiative and their data snapshot, just 6 billionaires publicly relocating removed $536 billion from the state's tax base.
Just 6 individuals.
6 people. It's insane.
And the New Times Magazine piece confirms the scale of this capital flight. They estimate that a staggering $1 trillion in capital is currently in the process of relocating out of California.
$1 trillion.
Yeah. They coined the phrase, the quiet exit. These aren't loud, table-flipping protests on social media.
No, it's highly calculated. It's founders like Larry Page and Sergey Brin from Google quietly shifting their legal and business ties.
Moving their complex family offices, philanthropic trusts, and investment arms to tax-friendly havens.
Like Nevada, Texas, or Florida.
Mhm.
They aren't holding press conferences, they're literally just changing their legal addresses.
And this hits California so hard because the state is caught in what fiscal analysts call the volatility trap.
Oh, the volatility trap is fascinating.
It really is. California's tax structure is incredibly progressive, which sounds equitable, but it results in a dangerous reliance on a microscopic fraction of the population.
The numbers on this are staggering. According to the Hoover data, just 8,235 households, which is roughly 0.05% of the state's taxpayers, they pay a jaw-dropping 19.8% of all personal income taxes.
0.05%, paying almost a fifth of the taxes.
Yeah. Governor Gavin Newsom had a perfect analogy for this a while back. He compared California's budget to an electrocardiogram.
Oh, like an EKG.
Exactly. It's a constant, violent cycle of extreme booms and devastating busts because the state's primary revenue engine is tied directly to the stock market, specifically the S&P 500.
Because those 8,000 top households aren't earning traditional salaries, their wealth is tied up in stock options, capital gains, and equity payouts.
Right.
When the stock market is roaring, those households cash out their shares, trigger massive capital gains taxes, and the state suddenly has a $100 billion budget surplus.
But the second the market dips or, the IPO window closes, those households hold on to their assets.
And the tax revenue evaporates overnight.
Literally overnight. And the state is instantly billions of dollars in the red. It is an incredibly fragile, chaotic way to run the fifth largest economy on the planet.
However, looking at the long-term structural health of the state, this immediate fiscal devastation might actually be the catalyst for survival.
That brings us to the California 100 report.
Right. They model several potential futures for the state over the next century. And one of the most compelling scenarios they present is called bargain basement audacity.
I love that name. Bargain basement audacity.
It's very catchy.
The core premise here is that governments rarely make difficult, unpopular structural changes when things are going well.
Right. Why fix it if it's not broke?
Exactly. As long as the tech money keeps rolling in, the state can afford to basically ignore its deeply broken foundations.
Precisely. The bargain basement audacity model suggests that a severe economic crisis, specifically a massive, undeniable loss of tax revenue due to billionaire flight, could provide the exact shock to the system needed.
Like a reset button.
Yeah, to force lawmakers to finally implement long overdue structural reforms. If the crutch of the ultra-rich is kicked away, the state can no longer paper over its systemic flaws.
Which means they would finally have to touch the third rail of California politics, broadening the tax base.
Oh boy.
The California 100 report points out they might be forced to reform Proposition 13.
That's huge.
For anyone outside of California, Prop 13 is a decades-old law that caps property taxes based on the purchase price of a home.
Not the current value.
Right. So you have a wealthy homeowner who bought a mansion in 1980 paying virtually nothing in property taxes, while a young family buying a modest starter home next door pays astronomically more.
It completely distorts the housing market, and it starves local municipalities of the stable, predictable property tax revenue that most other states rely on.
Yeah.
That starvation is exactly why California became so dangerously dependent on the volatile income taxes of tech billionaires in the first place.
A crisis forces the reckoning. They might have to start taxing services instead of just physical goods, or implement a vehicle miles traveled tax to fund infrastructure.
It hurts terribly in the short term.
Yeah, it's ripping off a Band-Aid that has been attached for 40 years. But it breaks the cycle of dependency and allows a much more stable, predictable tax base to heal over the wound.
And beyond just California's municipal spreadsheets, this migration signals a massive global cultural shift.
Oh, absolutely.
It changes how we define success, where innovation happens, and, well, the fundamental nature of modern capital.
The New Times article highlights a crucial evolution here. Wealth today is entirely intangible. We are no longer living in the Gilded Age where Andrew Carnegie had to physically remain in Pennsylvania to oversee his massive steel mills and railroad hubs.
No, today's capital is weightless.
Completely weightless.
A modern billionaire can shift their entire financial existence, their family office, their digital assets, their server farms, and their intellectual property portfolios to a zero-income tax state with a few keystrokes.
And some clever lawyering.
Very clever lawyering. Their physical presence is completely detached from their economic output.
And this mobility is rapidly accelerating the decentralization of the tech industry. I mean, for decades, Silicon Valley held an absolute monopoly on innovation.
Oh, for sure.
If you wanted venture capital funding, you had to be physically present in Palo Alto or San Francisco. You had to bring the same air as the investors.
But the normalization of remote work, combined with this massive capital flight, means the gravitational center of venture capital is splintering.
Yet the ambitious startup that absolutely would have launched in a Silicon Valley garage 10 years ago is now launching in Austin, Miami, Denver. Uh, they're completely remote.
It redefines the cultural currency of influence. You really have to wonder what it means for the future of these traditional hubs when the world's most successful innovators decide that physical proximity to the epicenter of tech power simply isn't worth the cost of admission anymore.
They are actively prioritizing low taxes and deregulation over being seen at the right venture capital coffee shops.
The prestige of the zip code is fading.
It really is. And this shift brings us back to a profound question about the role of extreme wealth in a democratic society.
That brings up a fascinating philosophical debate that was playing out in the Reddit threads analyzing this migration.
Right, this was a great thread.
Yeah, one user posed a really simple question. Is it fundamentally better for a society to have 100 people with $10 million each, or one person with $1 billion?
Wow. From a purely economic standpoint, 100 people with $10 million creates a much broader base of capital allocation.
Definitely.
You have 100 different individuals investing in diverse local businesses, funding different sectors, and spreading the risk. It's a more robust economic engine.
But there is a massive double-edged sword when we talk about losing that single billionaire to Texas or the Cayman Islands.
Right.
Yes, you lose the massive tax revenue that funds the schools and highways, which is the short-term pain we analyzed. But you also lose something that is harder to quantify. That billionaire is no longer around to unilaterally pull the levers of civic power in your community.
And that's a huge point. Extreme wealth concentration almost always translates to outsized, unchecked political and social influence.
Always.
A single billionaire residing in a city can single-handedly fund a new hospital wing, which is great.
Fantastic.
But they can also single-handedly bankroll local mayoral elections or block public transit zoning laws because it disrupts their view.
Or dictate the entire philanthropic direction of a region based on just their personal whims.
So we have to ask ourselves, are we actually just trading flashy wealth and volatile budget surpluses for a healthier democratic balance?
If the billionaires leave, the local government can no longer just cater to the desires of 5 tech founders.
They are forced to actually listen to the coalition of 150,000 small business owners, the teachers' unions, and the middle-class taxpayers who are suddenly footing the bill.
It is the ultimate trade-off. You lose the financial safety net that covers up your structural deficits, but you potentially regain civic equity and a government that represents a broader swath of its citizens.
Let's bring all of this together. We started by challenging the doom and gloom narrative surrounding California's billionaire exodus.
Right.
Looking at the data, the fiscal realities, and the societal mechanics across all these sources, the picture is infinitely more complex than a simple headline.
The short-term pain is undeniable. The projected $25 billion net loss from the mere threat of a wealth tax and the immediate evaporation of future income taxes as the quiet exit accelerates, well, it will cause severe budget crises.
But the long-term upside offers a genuine structural reboot. Flushing out the extreme wealth concentration could finally cure the Silicon Valley syndrome
It could cool off the hyperinflated housing market enough to stop the bleeding.
and prevent the total hollowing out of the middle class. And perhaps most importantly, the financial shock could force the state to stop kicking the can down the road.
And finally, implement the structural tax reforms needed to build a diversified, resilient economy that doesn't rely on the stock portfolios of 8,000 people.
It truly is a crucible moment for the state.
Yeah.
And analyzing this capital flight leaves us with a totally different question to consider.
Yeah, we've talked extensively about how billionaires fleeing California might actually save the state by forcing it to diversify.
Right.
Considering the mechanics we've discussed, here is the new question. If blue states like California accidentally build a thriving, diversified middle class by shedding their billionaires, will the red states, eagerly rolling out the red carpet to attract them, eventually fall victim to the exact same economic disease?
Oh, wow.
Will Texas and Florida wake up in 20 years to find they've infected themselves with the Silicon Valley syndrome, hollowing out their own middle class in exchange for a few massive tax brackets?
That is a fascinating reversal.
Yeah.
Are they just importing the disease they are currently celebrating?
Exactly.
We know this topic is highly contentious, and we want to hear where you land. If you're listening to this, do you buy the argument for the long-term structural upside? Or do you think the immediate multi-billion-dollar tax loss is just a death spiral that a state can't recover from?
It's a tough call.
It really is. Drop your thoughts below. Let's debate the true cost of extreme wealth in the comments section. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. New deep dives drop every Tuesday.